I sold, and I was still the youngest person in the sales office by the time I resigned. Did I get off my knees? Yes, I need to. All of these things are just stories. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud to share with you where I've come from. I'm proud to maybe make you think outside the box a little bit when you may or may not hire somebody, because it's so important what we can do together for the next generation. You've heard that over and over and over again. I wanted to give you personal stories towards it. I tell you at the beginning all the things that I am, that I'm a parent and a husband and a hockey dad and business owner, and I'm proud of all those things. I am obviously also a child, a son. My parents were the absolute best for me in their own way. My dad was the external force. He'd be the one that would fight with the doctors, that would fight with the school system, that would make sure that I got an education, that the world outside wouldn't take me for granted, but they would treat me the way I needed to be treated. He'd fight with the artificial arms and legs. He would run for school board president just to make sure I got educated. My mom was the opposite. My mom was the internal force in the house. You're going to clean your room. You're going to sit up straight. You're going to look presentable. You are not going to speak up in church or I'm going to pinch your arm. You're going to be the best young man that I can raise. My mom would turn to me all the time, and she'd have that stern look on her face, and she said, "John, you're exactly like I am. You don't know it yet as a child. You don't know it yet as a teenager. You don't know it yet as a young man, but we're the same person." Over time, I kind of realized, you know what, my mom was right. We're very similar. So when I met Andrea, one of my proudest moments was being able to introduce Andrea to my mom, and then ultimately my mom met Hayden, the son that I sort of raised as my own as we got married. And pretty soon after we were married, we were talking about starting our own family, having one or two other children, as we ultimately ended up doing. Year after we got married, phone rings in our house, and we're living in Syracuse, New York at the time, and my parents are still in Manchester, New Hampshire. And my parents had just returned from a trip in London. My mom picks up the phone and she says, "John, we're glad to be home. I don't want you to worry, but I've had some trouble walking on this trip to London. I don't really know what's going on. I'm a little bit tired." And I said, "Explain to me a little bit more about the symptoms," and she did. I said, "Okay, Mom." I said, "When are you going to go see the doctor?" And she said she was going to go see the doctor next week. My dad got on the phone, and in his normal way, he said, "Don't worry, John, we're going to fight with all the doctors. We'll figure this thing out together. We're going off to Boston to see one of the best specialists in the country." Phone rings 2 weeks later, and we have news to announce that we're pregnant. We're proud to share this with my mom. And my mom gets on the phone and she says, "John, I don't want you to worry." She said, "They just diagnosed me with something." And she started to say what it was, and I finished her sentence for her. And I said, "Mom, it's Lou Gehrig's disease, isn't it?" And she said, "Yes." Of course, when your mom says we're going to get through this together with Lou Gehrig's disease, there is no getting through it. I learned more about myself as a person with a disability watching my mom die with dignity with disability than I ever will in meeting somebody or sharing a story or whatever. I learned the most about myself from my mother. She ultimately was right. There in the nursing home towards the end of her days, she finally gets to meet her granddaughter, Ariel, who she's never really going to know, but we would drive up there every other week so she'd have a chance to see her granddaughter, who had 10 fingers and 10 toes and fulfilled the dream of maybe that she heard when I was born. She turned to me, we were alone one night before she passed, and she said, "John, for Ariel's christening, I'd like to do something for her." I said, "Okay." Of course, what she was really saying is, "John, I want to do something that my granddaughter, who I'll never know, will remember me for the rest of her days." I said, "Mom, I have the greatest gift that you could ever give Ariel." "What's that?" "Mom, on my bedroom wall growing up, as a young boy, young man, was a needlepoint saying that you made me, that I read to myself every day before I went to sleep." And she smiled and she said, "You did? You noticed that?" I said, "Not only I noticed it, Mom, I read it every day to myself." And she smiled. That needlepoint saying she gave to my daughter at her christening. And I fulfilled that promise. My daughter has read that every day. What is that needlepoint saying? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. I can't change these arms. I can't change maybe how you see me the first time. I can't single-handedly change the employment outcomes for people with disabilities. I can't stop Lou Gehrig's disease. The courage to change the things I can meet Lou Gehrig's disease head-on with love and compassion and dignity. I can help with our ability to connect, try to find employment outcomes for people with disabilities, and I can stand here to get to know you. And the final part of that sentence, which I heard somebody say, and the wisdom to know the difference. As you're out there tackling 503, as you're out there meeting people for the first time, trying to hit your employment outcomes, growing your business, being a good parent or a good friend or a good steward to your own self, when you look in that mirror Monday morning, and for the Mondays going forward, be wise to know that you have it in yourself to tackle whatever comes your way. Thank you very much for listening.